would you characterize the brutality of the attack?
To have abducted her and then to strangle somebody to death, it was absolutely shocking.
You have a female victim, naked. It's a sexual assault, homicide.
No one could understand how something like this could have happened, let alone to someone like Joette.
Dad just collapsed and was crying.
When we saw my mom, it was so crushing for her. A light went out. She was never the same.
Right after Joette Smith went missing, he left, gone.
The bad blood between them could have led to some type of confrontation.
If he got rejected, she said he would break things at the bar.
There was a mark on his face. He's got injuries. We need to look at him a lot closer.
Had you thought about what you would say to him?
It's horrible to say, but I hope he burns in hell.
We're on the case in Ben Lomond, California. It's a small, picturesque town nestled in the Santa Cruz Mountains. For those that live in the artsy community, most of their neighbors are someone they know and consider a friend. And that made the terrifying murder of Joette Smith a tragedy that hit home for nearly everyone. It also left a terrifying question in the air. Was Joette's killer still walking among them? March 29th, 1983. It was just after 11 on a crisp early spring morning in Ben Lomond, California, when a man walking along the bank of the San Lorenzo River stumbled upon a sight that will haunt him the rest of his life.
It was a female body floating in the river.
Was it obvious to him that this victim wasn't alive?
He was able to see from her body that she was pale and not moving. She was deceased.
The woman was face down and naked, except for the boot on her left foot and an unusual ring on her finger. The man raced to a nearby phone to contact police. What happened when emergency crews arrived?
Fire department was first on the scene. A couple of firefighters were able to bring her to the bank.
Shortly after the body was recovered, Santa Cruz Sheriff's deputies arrived. Sergeant Dave Deverald took charge of the investigation. What did you see when you arrived at the scene?
I observed a young white female, notable injuries about the face and head. And there were marks on her neck that led me to believe that she had been choked.
Was it obvious to you that this crime was sexually motivated?
If you have a female victim naked, it's a sexual assault and a homicide.
The lack of footprints, broken branches, or evidence of a struggle on the riverbank were also critical clues.
It became obvious to us that she wasn't killed where we found her.
Investigators focused their attention on areas where the crime could have taken place.
They came to this location, which is about 300 yards upstream from where the victim was located. They searched under the bridge here. They found a red scarf, a torn black bra, and a navy dress. Just below the dress, they found a black boot. They believed it was the same boot that was on her, and this clothing would have been her clothing.
Investigators also discovered some loose change on the ground. Those coins and other clues found near the clothes helped sharpen their theory of how the crime unfolded.
Where we found the clothing, the ground around it was disturbed. The clothing was tossed about in such a manner as to suggest that that was where the assault had occurred.
It's pretty clear that she had been attacked there and then her body put into the river to float away.
As investigators studied the location, it raised other questions that weren't as easily answered, including whether the young woman was walking over the small but well-traveled bridge above them when she crossed paths with her killer. Police knew the key to finding the next pieces of the puzzle started with the victim's name. Was there any purse or identification found?
We were not able to locate anything that identified the victim.
Investigators quickly formulated a plan.
Ben Lomond's a small community. The decision was made, let's go ahead and take a couple of Polaroid shots, see if we can locate somebody that knows the victim.
Ben Lomond at the time was an incredibly small, tight-knit community. You could walk pretty much throughout the entire town.
Deputies went door to door looking for anyone with information. When the victim's picture was shown around town, did anyone recognize her?
Several people ended up IDing her as Joette Smith, who owned a restaurant called Buffalo Gals.
Joette was very popular in the community. The locals loved her restaurant for her food. It was small. It was just her and one other employee.
The personal information was useful, but investigators believe that the location of the restaurant and its proximity to her home were more important.
She lived in a small cabin-type building within a few hundred yards of the restaurant itself. The restaurant and her home were less than 100 yards from the area where she had been assaulted. That really opened up a lot of avenues to us in moving forward with our investigation.
Police scoured Joette's home and restaurant for any clue that could be related to the crime. What happened when you and your fellow deputies went to Joette's home?
A concern would be, did an assault happen here at the house? And that wasn't the case. I guess most notable is that it revealed nothing. We didn't come across any diaries or papers that would suggest problems of any sort. We seized the reservation book for the restaurant to look for names of people who might have been in contact with her during those final hours.
As police looked through the reservation book, they noticed that Buffalo Gals had been closed the night before. Still, they zeroed in on the names of any man who had been there. They wondered if one of them had a reason to hurt Joette. But for now, even that crucial question had to be put on the back burner. Investigators first had to face the worst job in law enforcement, giving the devastating news to the loved ones of Joette Smith. As the investigation into the murder of Joette Smith continued in Ben Lomond, California, 1,500 miles away in Omaha, Nebraska, those closest to Joette were just getting the tragic news. Tell me about the day that you found out Joette was gone.
There was a knock on the door, and my dad knew many of the policemen in the area, so it was one of his friends.
The officer's words left Joette's father reeling.
Dad just collapsed and was crying.
It was shocking. It seemed surreal. It had to be somebody else. It couldn't be her.
But once the meeting with police was over, it was all too clear that Joette was in fact gone. The revelation was shattering.
When we saw my mom, that was probably the hardest, because that was her firstborn. Oh, it was so crushing for her. A light went out. She was never the same.
Joette was the oldest of 7 children that made her a third parent in a blended family. She was already a teenager when Annette and Yvette were born. Despite the 16-year age difference, you were close to Joette, weren't you?
Absolutely. We'd cook together. She'd teach us her recipes when she'd come over. I mean, that's kind of how we learned. She'd just bring like a new angle with her creativity.
She always had something to introduce us to, something new, some experience or gift or stories. She liked to give people new things to explore.
Joette's love of new things led her to move to Ben Lomond. And once she settled in, she quickly began turning her dreams into reality.
One day she says, I think I'm going to start a restaurant. We're like, you're what? It's like, do you know how much work that goes into that? She was so excited to do it. So, of course, we were behind her.
How proud were you of this new life she created for herself?
20-some years old and opening your own restaurant, and she was so happy. She felt like she fit in. She found her tribe, and she loved it.
Joette was extremely talented and driven. Her hard work made Buffalo Gals a major success.
She was the first farm-to-table chef that we ever knew about before it was popular.
There were people 2 hours away driving to eat at her restaurant for dinner.
Everything Joette had achieved in such a short time only made it harder for her loved ones to come to terms with her violent end. And there was little they could offer to police trying to solve her murder. Investigators hoped the medical examiner would give them their first lead. What did the autopsy determine was the cause of Joette's death?
The autopsy showed that those marks on her neck were in fact strangulation marks, and her cause of death was listed as strangulation.
Was there any evidence of a sexual assault?
Yes, she had been sexually assaulted.
How would you characterize the brutality of the attack?
This attack was shocking to the conscience. The suspect probably was lying in wait, had to have abducted her to take her down under the bridge and sexually assault her, and then to manually strangle somebody to death, to toss the body into the river, just showing no remorse, no respect for life. It was absolutely shocking.
The autopsy report estimated that Joette had been in the water between 24 and 48 hours before she was discovered. Fingernail clippings and a sexual assault kit were collected, but investigators weren't optimistic.
Given the time frame in the river, there wasn't a great deal of hope that we would come up with much of anything.
What then did you have to go on in the early days of this investigation?
Our investigations were very much interview-based. We'd talk to friends and relatives. Somebody would point a finger, and you'd bring somebody in and talk to them with the hopes that something would come up.
In Ben Lomond, getting those answers was easy. Everyone police spoke with wanted to help them find Joette's killer.
No one could understand how something like this could have happened under their noses, let alone to someone like Joette.
Following those interviews, a timeline of Joette's last moments alive slowly came into focus. The chef had last been at the restaurant on Sunday night. Police spoke with a friend of hers named Rachel, who had hung out with Joette Sunday after she had gotten home from work. What did she say she and Joette had been up to that night?
Rachel said that night Joette came home after work and they had some popcorn and drank wine and began watching a TV show together.
But Rachel wasn't feeling well and went to bed around 11 p.m. Was she expecting Joette to go out that night after she turned in?
No, not specifically, but it wouldn't have been unlike Joette to go out.
Rachel said when she woke up Monday morning, Joette wasn't there, but she didn't make much of that.
Because Joette owned her own restaurant, the friend had assumed that she had gone to the restaurant. The friend didn't think it overly suspicious or odd that Joette wasn't around.
But once Rachel was told about the tragedy, she immediately gave police a new direction. She feared Joette had been killed by an ex-boyfriend. The two had broken up about 6 weeks before her murder. And it had been a stormy split. As investigators listened to the details of Rachel's story, they knew they now had their first suspect. Detectives investigating the murder of 33-year-old Joette Smith had a lot of questions for her ex-boyfriend, Miguel. What did you learn about Joette's relationship with Miguel?
Miguel crashed her car, and she was quite irate. That pretty much ended the relationship.
And things quickly got worse when Miguel broke his promise to pay for the repairs. What did Joette's friends say about how determined she was to get him to pay for the damages?
She was quite determined, but Miguel was making himself scarce.
Miguel hadn't given her a penny. And by all accounts, Joette was furious.
There's a belief that because of the bad blood between them, that it could have led to some type of confrontation.
And that theory gained steam when investigators learned that Miguel had already skipped town.
They ended up finding his current girlfriend, who said that he was up in San Francisco.
More red flags went up when police discovered that he had left Tuesday morning, just after Joette's body was found. But despite those suspicious coincidences, Miguel's girlfriend insisted that he wasn't the killer.
She alibied Miguel. They were together that entire weekend, and the alibi was very detailed.
She was very cooperative, said she would take a polygraph to this information, and said she would have Miguel come back and cooperate.
Miguel's girlfriend passed the polygraph, and his version of the night in question was identical. The matching detailed alibis left investigators with no choice but to try and narrow the window of time in which the crime had taken place. They focused on what had happened to Joette after 11 p.m. on Sunday, when her friend went to bed. And a bartender from a local pub came forward and filled in critical details.
We had interviewed the bartender at Hen Flings, and she recalled Joette coming there on Sunday night, just after midnight.
The bartender said her last customer had left, and as she was locking the front door, Joette showed up.
Joette said she was looking to get a pack of cigarettes. Nothing else was open.
She let Joette in because they knew each other. Then she sold Joette the cigarettes.
Did Joette seem okay that night?
Yes, she offered her a ride home, but Joette told her it was a nice night and she wanted to walk.
How far was Hen Flings from Joette's house?
From Hen Flings over to Joette's house is less than a quarter of a mile.
The walk home would have taken Joette right past the crime scene. Investigators asked the bartender if she had given Joette change from the cigarette purchase. Her answer was a major clue. She had given Joette 50 cents back, matching the 2 quarters investigators had found at the crime scene. Why was the information about the change so important?
That was what led us to believe that she was attacked on the way home.
As Joette was walking home, she was accosted there at the bridge, drug under the bridge, assaulted, and murdered.
As police retraced Joette's walk home, it quickly became clear that she would never have been able to see her assailant until it was too late. Was there any outdoor lighting around the bridge?
No, this area is really dark at night. There's a lot of places a person could have hidden.
But who could have known that Joette had to cross that bridge so late at night? Investigators turned back to the bartender story. They wanted to know the name of the customer who had left Henfling's right before Joette arrived.
She related that her last customer of the night was Bruce.
And there was more. How well did Bruce know Joette?
They knew each other fairly well. Bruce and Joette briefly dated a few weeks before she was murdered.
This stunning detail made finding Bruce a top priority. And when investigators located him, they observed signs that he had recently been in a fight.
He had scratches on his face, and that caught the attention and the alarm of investigators.
He's got injuries. We need to look at him a lot closer.
Investigators had a tip that allowed police to narrow the time frame in which Joette Smith had likely crossed paths with her killer. And that same conversation placed one of Joette's former romantic interests just steps from the crime scene during those fateful few minutes. But the investigation really shifted into high gear when detectives brought Bruce in for questioning and noticed that he had injuries consistent with a violent struggle. Could Bruce explain the scratches on his face?
He told detectives it was from a bar fight, but they could have just as easily been a result from this attack on Joette.
Police remained skeptical of Bruce's story as they carefully studied the cuts on his face.
There was a mark on his face that was unusual. We said, wait a minute, she had a ring on one of her hands. And the ring had some very significant raised edges on it. So we're kind of looking at the ring, looking at the injury on Bruce's face, and kind of go, I wonder.
Detectives pressed Bruce about where he had gone after he left the bar, just as Joette had arrived. When Bruce was asked about Sunday night at Henfling's, what did he say?
In talking to him, I go, were you at Henfling's that night? And Bruce goes, no, I wasn't there.
Did he lose all credibility for you at that point?
Certainly, he's being very deceptive about where he was the night of the murder. So yeah, he became a very strong focus for us.
Police arrested Bruce on an unrelated outstanding warrant. They obtained a blood sample from him and took a closer look at the cut on his face that may have been caused by Joette's ring.
We did some macro photography, trying to determine whether the injury on Bruce's face was made by the ring that Joette was wearing.
Police also did a search of their suspect's home.
Looking through his house, we came across a shirt that clearly had blood on it. We seized that shirt for further analysis.
The evidence had investigators convinced they were on the right track.
We've got a guy that's been lying to us. He's been involved in a struggle. And now we got a bloody shirt.
Police hoped that forensic testing would connect the blood to Joette Smith. Whose blood was discovered on the shirt?
It was Bruce's.
And the lab couldn't say if Bruce's injury had been caused by Joette's ring. Was there anything other than the circumstantial evidence that connected him to Joette's murder?
There wasn't. There was no physical evidence that they could make any connection to him.
We never came up with anything else that would tie him to it.
Despite all of Bruce's suspicious behavior, police had no choice but to move on. And just as detectives had closed one door, a new one opened. Another man linked to Joette, this one a firefighter named Mark, had raised red flags with the way he had continued to insert himself into the investigation.
Mark became a focus because he initially approached deputies and began speaking to them about the case, giving them possible leads.
He was asking for updates on the investigation, trying to provide investigators with tips about how to solve it.
And detectives were troubled by things Mark had said to friends and coworkers as well.
Mark worked for the Ben Lomond Fire Department and said he was initially dispatched to the call, but he was told to not respond because it was his ex-girlfriend, Joette. And what was so odd about that is no one knew Joette's identity within the first few hours of the investigation.
Mark also seemed to know things about the case that were closely held police secrets.
He knew that she was sexually assaulted, which is something that hadn't been put out public. He knew what kind of clothing she was wearing. He had told people that they need to check on her fingernails for the evidence that she had fought back.
He talked about the likelihood that she'd been strangled. And as a team, we're kind of looking at it going, we haven't released that information. That's not something that's known to the general public.
If Mark wasn't the killer, how did he know that specific information?
That was the big question for detectives.
Investigators brought Mark in for questioning, and he immediately denied having anything to do with Joette's murder.
He indicated that Sunday he was with his current girlfriend and that he wasn't anywhere around at the time of Joette's murder.
Did his girlfriend back him up?
To a certain degree, she said that they had been together that night, but then she had fallen asleep. It is possible that he could have left and she wouldn't have been aware.
And the young woman went further. She told police that she believed that Mark still had feelings for Joette and that he had anger issues related to drinking.
She described Mark as having an alcohol abuse problem.
We ended up setting up surveillance on him.
But nothing they found advanced the investigation. Within weeks, police had run into the same stumbling block that seemed destined to make Joette's murder a cold case. They still had nothing to go on, no physical evidence nor witness that could tie a suspect to the crime.
3 really hot leads that we thought we had all disappeared. So where do we need to go?
How difficult was this investigation when there was simply no physical evidence?
It was incredibly challenging.
And police weren't the only ones who were frustrated. The small town of Ben Lomond was trapped under a dark cloud of suspicion.
For a long time, I think people lived in fear, feeling really unsafe in this town that had been kind of like a utopia.
Everyone knew there was a killer on the loose, and most wondered if he would ever be caught. The Joette Smith murder investigation had been dormant for 5 years when the Santa Cruz Sheriff's Office got a tip that turned the cold case red hot.
A person who was incarcerated in another state came forward and wanted to provide information.
What was the tip that he gave law enforcement?
There had been a janitor working at a bar across the river from where Joette was attacked, and this male had a history of violent aggression with women.
The tipster provided deputies with the name of that janitor, Eric Drummond. Detectives followed up on the lead and discovered that he had been in Ben Lomond the night of the attack.
He disappeared. Right after Joette Smith went missing, he left, gone.
Investigators dug deeper and found one of Drummond's former co-workers who painted a frightening picture of his violent temper.
She said that he would break things at the bar when he would get upset. He often got into fights, and when women would come into the bar, he would ask him out on dates, and if he got rejected, he would get very angry.
And there was more.
She believed that she saw Drummond approach Joette and ask her on a date one time prior to her murder.
And Joette had turned him down. The story was chilling, but it was Drummond's rap sheet that convinced police they were on the right track. What did investigators learn about his criminal history?
It had a lot of violent assaults against women, kidnapping, a lot of cases that created red flags.
One crime in particular really caught the attention of investigators.
He was involved in a sexual assault up in Shasta County. He grabbed a gal walking to her Volkswagen, took her down into a ravine, very similar to what happened to Joette.
A female was abducted, taken down to a drainage river where she was physically and sexually assaulted. When I looked at Joette's case, I thought they were eerily similar.
The victim believed that Drummond was going to kill her, but she caught a break that likely saved her life.
She fell on a bottle, and she came up and hit him in the head, and it dazed him, and she was able to get away.
The woman hid in the woods while Drummond searched for her. When he finally left, she saw his car and reported him to police. Drummond was arrested, but the case never went to trial. Why wasn't he charged with the crime?
The victim was unable to make an identification on him.
Still, detectives were convinced that Drummond's criminal history and his proximity to the crime scene were enough to confront him about Joette Smith's murder face to face. When they caught up with him, he was behind bars for a different violent crime.
Did you know the victim? Yeah. And how did you know her? Did you ever have any conversations with her? My friend Curtis asked me for what I talked about.
Then Drummond went further.
He said he had gone to her restaurant to ask her out on a date, and that she had told him that she would think about it.
Detectives asked Drummond what happened after Joette turned him down.
Rejected. You killed Joette Smith?
Drummond's denials did little to convince detectives that he wasn't Joette's killer, but they still needed proof. And that left the investigation at the same impasse it hit with the 3 earlier suspects. What happened to the case after that?
It truly went cold at that point.
Years turned into decades, and Joette's family wondered if they would ever know the truth. Did your parents ever talk with you or your siblings about wanting to find Joette's killer?
My dad wanted justice. He wanted to find out who had done it. He had a lot of anger about it. My mom was more focused on the loss of Joette.
Neither ever saw their daughter's killer answer for his crime. But even after their passing, law enforcement remained motivated to find justice. In 2022, Sergeant Jeff Simpson and his cold case team reopened the investigation. When you picked up the case, what made you think you had a chance to solve it?
The new technological advances in the field of DNA.
And investigators believed they had a viable source to find DNA when they realized that Joette's clothing had never been tested. Why was the decision made to test Joette's dress first?
Our forensic technicians believed the best source of DNA evidence would come from the dress.
And that hunch paid off. What was your reaction when the lab called you to confirm that male DNA had been found on the dress?
There was excitement. We knew that was going to be the killer in this case.
But police were stunned when the DNA was uploaded into CODIS and there was no match. The results appeared to eliminate their prime suspect, Eric Drummond. Then they made a crucial discovery. Drummond's DNA profile had never been entered into the national database.
We thought it would have been, just with all the cases that he had picked up in the late 90s.
And there was more troubling news. Drummond was now a free man.
He had moved on. He had a family, had a house, was working.
People had no idea that he had had this history. They knew him as a very friendly person. No one would have suspected that he may have murdered someone when he was in his 20s.
Investigators knew they now had to get a sample of Drummond's DNA if they wanted to make an arrest.
We had reached out to detectives in Washoe County, Nevada, who were willing to step up and really assist in this case.
Washoe County detectives knocked on Drummond's door.
The reason I'm here is California reached out to me. They're working on some old cases, and I wanted to know if you would consent to supplying the DNA sample.
I think I gave him one when I was in prison.
Okay. Would you be willing to provide one for me today?
Sure. Okay.
Drummond's cooperation surprised investigators.
I was concerned that he gave it so easily. It actually gave me some doubt that maybe he wasn't involved.
But the lab results put an end to Sergeant Simpson's concerns. Can you describe the moment when it was confirmed that Drummond's DNA matched the profile from the crime scene?
Sergeant Simpson and I were in our office and received a phone call from one of our CSI supervisors, and she let us know that it was a match, and we were just so excited.
It was very satisfying, finally, after all these years, to come back and say, we know who did it.
But those feelings were about to change in a way no one could have expected. What happened right before you were to arrest Drummond for the murder?
He committed suicide. My first reaction was anger to get a conviction in court. That's what we strive to get. And we felt the frustration that we were never going to be able to get that. And we had to tell that to our family.
Joette's loved ones, who had been crushed by disappointing news for decades, felt the sting of another blow. What was your reaction when you got a call informing you that Joette's murder had finally been solved?
At first, he said, 100%, we have her killer. And then following that with, unfortunately, I have some bad news. He killed himself. He's caught. Okay, but I don't think I have closure.
Had you thought about what you might have said to him?
Yes, it's horrible to say, and I know this isn't very Christian, but I hope he burns in hell.
But after their initial disappointment, Joette's loved ones tried to focus on how they had been spared a painful trial and its gruesome details.
I was never wanting to see him in court. It's final now.
And that finality may ultimately be a blessing. Now, Joette's sisters can spend their time honoring a life well lived.
I miss her every day. I would love to have known what she would have been like now and what she would have accomplished.
How much a part of your life today is Joette?
We talk about her so much and have pictures around. We share stories, and it's usually a lot of laughter that we share, remembering her.
The Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office hopes to bring justice to more families like Joette Smith's. And they want those loved ones to know that their team won't rest until every cold case is solved. I'm Paula Zahn. Please join us again next time when we're back on the case.
On the next